G'day. Thanks to everyone that recently asked me the questions that I suggested that you might want to ask. I thought I'd come down here and try and answer a few. Okay, so in no particular order, some answers to your questions. One of them's an interesting one. How do you maintain your high desire to keep making videos? Well, it's hard at times, I won't lie to you. Sometimes it's an actual pain in the ass to make videos. I think it's probably that YouTube has something I've mentioned before that is totally unexpected when you start creating, which I've been doing for about 17 years, and that is you do make some real life friends out of it. Whether you meet all those friends in person or not, it's irrelevant, but I have personally. Just wait for a truck. So that keeps inspiring me, and also I feel a sense of obligation or not wanting to disappoint people, because I try my hardest in life not to disappoint people. You can't satisfy everyone, but I try. And I think if I just went like a lot of YouTubers and only uploaded every few months or even less often, I think I'd be letting you guys down. So it is a passion. It can be hard work, especially being a one-man band as I am, as I've mentioned before. Make sure you check out this year's end of year outtakes, because there'll be a doozy of them again. But yeah, I think that's why I keep going. I've mentioned it has been to my financial detriment, big time. I've let opportunities slip by because I've focused on making regular videos, and yeah, unfortunately, well, this car being one of them. 6 months ago or so, they were really high in value, and now they've slowly come down, or rather dramatically, so that's potentially costing me a packet. Anyway, that's kind of why I keep going. I like editing. I like to try and bring quality or information to you guys. Sometimes I spontaneously make videos when something new comes up, but generally that's it. So another question, and I think this was a real question, but anyway, how do I keep my hair so beautiful? Well, very low maintenance is how I do it, to be honest. It was a lot easier to look after when I had it short for a few years, for continuity for a film I was doing, Mack de la Rose. But since I've let it grow long again, it's really not much maintenance at all. I like to alternate, like every second night I'll have a bath instead of a shower. That tends to dry your hair out, so for the last year I guess I've been using a product. You just pump it in and do a couple of those things. It's an anti-frizz. Also spray a bit of moisturiser in. I don't wash it very frequently, as in certainly no more than every week. So yeah, low maintenance. As you probably know if you've stayed with my channel for some time, probably a year or two between haircuts. When I do, it's usually only a small amount taken off, just any split ends. So yeah, not much maintenance at all, but thank you for the compliment. On to another question. Where did I grow up and how has it changed? Well, I grew up, born and bred here in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. I'm lucky where I live now on the western suburbs, because there is a lot of acreage still, which I really enjoy the quieter life here than in the Brisbane city, which is about 20 minutes away from where I live. City especially, I've noticed changes since I was a little boy. It's got a lot bigger. It's a very large city, and I don't like the way it's been heading. It's convenient, I guess, for people that live near the city centre. There's a lot of roads and tunnels that never used to be there. which is why, even though born in Brisbane, I still get lost sometimes when I have to go that way. Progress is not my favourite thing. I would prefer it to be more of a large country town, as some people referred to it as years ago. Anyway, not much we can do about that. Another question, what do I think of space travel, SpaceX, NASA, etc.? I think, as a technically minded person, I think it's fascinating. It really is. It's quite outstanding. If I refer, however, to the very recent moon landing by India, that's great, but I can't help thinking that the population of India is about 270 million people. A lot of those people, not everyone, lives in poverty or very near to it. Some people are living on the streets basically in lean-to huts, so I'm pretty sure that they would prefer the government spent money in helping them in their day-to-day life and their struggles, rather than spend trillions or billions and squillions shooting up to the moon. Anyway, technically I think it's astounding. I think it's a long way in the future, if ever, that we actually start colonising other planets, but yeah, I don't think I'll be around anyway. Okay, wind's picking up a bit. Let's go back home and I'll answer some more questions. Well, here I am home again, and surprisingly, it's thundering, so that'll be cool. Anyway, take my hair down now. Some of these are a little bit deeper, these questions. Oh no, I've lost my light down the hole. Shit. Alright, found it. Oh well, welcome to filming on your own. Okay, some of these are a bit deeper, these questions. I'm using the GoPro, by the way, for these shots as well. Yeah. You can see behind me is the pool. One day I will finish the pool video. Yeah, anyway, so I'll do a few of these before it starts raining. Just check my notes here that I've transcribed to my phone. I'll show you what's under Studio A in a second, it's just there. How old were you when you lost your father, and what impact did it have on you at the time? Okay, so how old was I? That was a while ago. I think I was 22. Anyway, long time ago. And yeah, well, I may have mentioned before in the past, but since this is a long video, I'll mention it again. Dad never used to live with Mum and I. Long story. But I saw him, I don't know, probably once a month, or maybe sometimes a bit more often. But nevertheless, I was still close to him. When he died, sadly I didn't get to... I did find out through a mutual friend of Mum's, later on became a friend of mine, many years later when I was dealing with Amway for a while, that Dad was taken to hospital, and apparently he'd been gardening at home where he lived, ended up with pneumonia. Now I did think about going to see him in hospital, of course, but I didn't want to run into his other family. There's another longer story there. So I didn't, but funnily enough, I nearly died about 8 years ago from pneumonia, double pneumonia. You may have heard this story. Caught it from a bug, let's say, some sort of virus, and both lungs. Basically, I was put into a induced coma. I won't show you some of the pictures that Letty took of me. That's one thing I probably never put on YouTube. But yeah, basically I had like 8 or 10 machines breathing for me and keeping me alive. So it's ironic that Dad died that way. Obviously didn't quite have the treatment that I had. I was in intensive care for a couple of weeks, out to it. So anyway, Dad died. This friend of ours, she rang, and I think actually now I recall it. I answered the phone and she told me, so I was the first to know. Yeah, obviously I was devastated. I mean, I loved him very much, as you do. And I remember I cried for a week and got through it. I did finally, years ago now, send an email to Barbara Streisand, because the movie Yentl, which was a favourite of mine at the time that she was in, there was a certain song in there, and I played it over and over and over again. That really, yeah, was very sad. So I cried for a week when Dad died, and but funnily enough, I did the same with some of my cats that have died in recent years. I still have a bit of a cry once in a while in bed when I say goodnight to them all. The ones that aren't here, I still say goodnight. Whether or not the spirit can hear me, I don't know. I suppose makes me feel a little tiny bit better. But then I start thinking about them often in bed. And occasionally I tear up. Yeah, I guess it's no hidden thing from you that I really, really miss them. They were my family. Never having kids of my own, they were my family. Some of you will know that. Anyway, I'll get to Mum, the questions about Mum, when I go back upstairs. Of course, once I've started filming, the thunder has stopped. But by the time I'm finished, I'm sure it'll do it again. Yeah. So, oh, by the way too, I've had a few questions about acting. I should have said in the video to ask me a question. Didn't really want to go into that. Despite the fact I've spoken a few things about acting on this channel, it's not something I talk about much. Probably deserves a separate video to answer some of those, but I'll answer some of them at the end of this video. So I'll go on to the next thing. Let me just check my phone. It's notes, you understand. So, yeah, alright, so was there a member of my extended family that you have a special memory with? Yeah, there was. His name was Graham. He died, oh, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. You can tell I'm home, by the way, because there's a power saw going and dogs barking. Anyway, yeah, I think he died, well, just over 10 years, somewhere between 10 and 15 years ago. He was a guy I met, may have mentioned him, I think I mentioned him briefly before I met Craig for the first time, a couple of years ago. Yeah, I met him when I used to be on the CB radio as a kid, and ended up meeting him, and yeah, we got on really well. He was much older than me, but I will say this, he was definitely a positive influence on my life. I think it was naturally instilled anyway, but my belief system of not lying, and I'll say this frankly, if you ever want to piss me off, call me a liar, question my integrity or my honesty and my ethics, that will really piss me off, because that's the way I live my life, is that way. So yeah, anyway, that's a side note. I'm very forgiving, so too forgiving probably, but Graham, I think, helped instill those values into me. Now, coincidentally, another question, my favourite childhood memory, that's a really challenging one, but I will say probably, aside from probably going away to Maroochydore up the Sunshine Coast with Mum, I guess there are a lot of things, but when I first think of it, I think Graham was involved in it too, and I was a teenager, but we used to drive in his Humber Super Snipe, 1956 car, to swap meets. I think they're called swap meets worldwide. You know, car parts and old vintage cars and things. Really enjoyed that. And yeah, we used to drive around in the Humber. A lot of good memories. And he got on really well with Mum as well, but there was none of that. My dad, though, when he knew Graham was visiting, sorry about the power saw, he actually apparently became jealous, thinking Graham was trying to crack onto Mum, but he wasn't that sort of guy. He was, I don't know, he just wasn't. So that wasn't a factor, but jealousy, hey? What's the next question? This one I'm not too sure the way it was put to me. When do you think you enjoyed your daily work, job, etc. the best of times? Do you mean what I do these days or what I've done in the past? I've done many things. Check out the video if you haven't, where I kind of summarised a lot of the things I've done. If you're talking about my last employed full-time job, which was with the government, I guess I enjoyed when I started off as a new casual, thinking I was making a difference in the lives of some of the people I supported with intellectual disabilities, some of them dual diagnosis, so they had psychiatric disabilities too. Yeah, it was good, and I think it was, well, when I was casual, it was really tough when I was offered full-time, because with casual, as some of you will know, you do get the choice of saying, hey, I'm not available on these days or whatever. And we used to go away quite a lot. You know, midweek especially was cheaper and less crowded. So I'd just be able to factor that in, look at my roster, and we eventually later on went on to 12-hour rosters, so 12-hour shifts, because some of them went 14 hours if there was emergencies. But yeah, I enjoyed the fact I had that freedom, but it took a permanent staff member somewhere else to kind of convince me to accept the full-time thing. So I suppose work-wise I enjoyed that. I did a lot of office work as well whilst supporting the people, did a few various things. So I think I enjoyed making a difference. Ultimately though, as I've touched on in a few other videos, yeah, it wasn't so much the clients, even though my main one I ended up being the key worker for, drove your batty for nearly 12 hours at a time, and sometimes he was violent, but he was behaved usually when I came along. He'd be running amok. I'd come to work, you'd never know quite what to expect, and sometimes there was absolute chaos, things being thrown around, etc. And I'd walk in, I'd just go, what's going on, Chris? Oh, sorry, Steve. Anyway, yeah, he got on pretty well with me. Anyway, I suppose it's a tough one, if that's what you're asking. I was asked by Johnny, thanks for that. You always ask the difficult questions, Johnny. Okay, excuse me. Well, I'm sorry, I thought you'd hear thunder, but well, there you go. It's noisy when you don't want it, and when you do want it, it's not. I'll just answer while I'm here what's under Studio A. I've shown a few times what's under here, but let me just get the GoPro here. And, okay, so up there is Studio A. You've even seen the drone fly. Studio A there where I sit. Under here is that. Okay, here's a little, what they call a cutaway shot. This is looking underneath Studio A. Studio A's up there. Just underneath, you see. Then we go down a level. Here, pool enclosure is. You've seen this before. One of my lawnmower videos. Down here to the pool level. There's another level over there, but it's very steep, I don't go there. Okay, I think that's it for down here. Let's go upstairs. Well, inside here you see, speaking of Mum, have a picture of Mum when she was young. Say goodnight to her every night. Down the hallway I have my Uma Thurman hand signed collection, if you can see that. And forward here into the bedroom, I actually have a picture of Mum that was taken, I think, sorry about the show, a couple of years before she died. Little passport photos. Every night I say goodnight, Mum, I love you. Same over here next to the bed. Picture of me and Meow. A long time ago. Do the same thing with that. So I'll take you back outside for this last. I'll take you back outside for this section. And here I have a little, not all the photographs, but a little shrine, if you like, of my cat family that died. Meow and Suki, and had one of Tippy and Teddy. All of their fur is in this little thing there. There's a clipping of all of their fur in there. So even though he stayed here twice, Craig asked me how I like my coffee. Very nice, thank you. My preferred flavour is Moccona Rich 9. I like my coffee with milk and 2 sugars. Well, you've seen many times me filming here in Studio A, which is upstairs, and normally I'd switch to another camera, but since I'm doing the whole thing with the GoPro this time, we'll see what it looks like. It's windy as hell, by the way, so I'm waiting for this thing to go flying. Back to the question about Mum. Yes, obviously I was very close to Mum. Was raised pretty well just by Mum, so it's pretty evident. She died, it's now been over 10 years. Hard to believe. 10 years since I've given her a hug. I did even put up a 2-part video of her funeral, and myself and Letty saying a few things there. Yeah. Now the question, I've been thinking about this one since it was asked, how did she influence me, or did she? I can't think of anything that she specifically did. I think it was just the fact that her and Dad were just basically good people. Not extraordinary, just ordinary people, good-hearted people, and I think genetically that's where I've inherited my traits. They both had a pretty good sense of humour. Mine's probably a little bit more on the warped side at times, but yeah, tough questions. Anyway, so far the wind hasn't blown this off, so while luck is on my side, I'm going to answer the final part of the video somewhere else. In fact, tomorrow. But don't worry, it's only tomorrow my time, not yours. Well, quick update on the way to where I'm going to end the video. You may have seen the this crane in a recent video. All I can say is good luck towing this giant crane with this little truck. Anyway, I'll put this up as a YouTube Shorts video in due course. Check out the Mount Crosby Weir, the new bridge they've been building. Amazing. A lot of money. Well, this is actually on a different day. You can tell it's a different day because it's a different t-shirt. Just out and thought I'd come to this. Never actually filmed in this part before. I was going to go near the river, but I've done a little bit of video there before. different sort of river. Alright, so just to wind up this video, sticking with the GoPro still, I've had a few questions about acting, and of course I've forgotten to take my notes with me. So yeah, didn't really want to talk about acting. Sorry, it's a bit dark here maybe, but let me try and remember some of the questions. Basically, without exact words, roles that I have always inspired to do. No particular role. I've done a fair few. You can check out in the description area, in the links below, my professional web page, and you can check out where most of what I've done in my life has been. I've done some interesting roles. I guess I'm not inspired by any particular director or anything. I probably will make another video one day specifically about acting, and see what I can say there. But yeah, look, if there's a choice between playing a good guy and a villain, I prefer the villain for some reason, and I've done a fair few of those. Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a different thing from just being the good guy. To me, I think there's a bit more substance involved in the villain role. Anyway, I was also asked, was I inspired to get into acting by any particular directors or actors? No, not really. I started 36 plus years ago in the film industry. I've mentioned this before. I've done everything pretty well in the film industry, behind the camera, everything like that. Even written and directed a few things myself. So no particular inspiration. So if there's any questions about acting I've forgotten because I left the notes in the car, I will include that in a future video possibly. I don't like talking about acting much. I know I have a few times on this, but yeah, biggest roles I've had, there have been various. I'm obviously not a Hollywood A-lister, and for obvious reasons there are many roles that I'd never be selected for, or in fact aren't suitable for. That's the reality of it, and I'm a realist. A lot of people unfortunately think you get into the industry and you'll be able to get every role. Well, you simply can't. It's just a fact of life. Okay, so with that I will wind up, and if you're still with me for all this time, I want to thank you very much for staying this long. I hope I've been able to answer most of your questions, and yeah, check out the video. I'll put it in the links again, where I've made an extended video a while back listing a lot of the things I've done in my life. Okay, cheers for now. This video's ended up being fully GoPro, and so far I was pretty impressed with the quality, so hope you find the same. Cheers, and I'll see you soon.